Just because you can compare it to Halo doesn't put it in the same league. Hi, I'm Greg Kasavin for GameSpot Live, and I'm going to tell you something about Brute Force. It's the latest kind of big first-party exclusive game for the Xbox, and it's a third-person sci-fi themed shooter. You get to play as a squad of 4 different characters. You can choose to play as any of them, and the game's got cooperative and competitive multiplayer modes built right into it. So at any time during the campaign, other players can jack in and assume control of the previously AI-controlled soldiers and join up with you and fight the good fight. It's a good, solid game, and it's also got some problems. It's been in development for a long time, but you'll also get the impression that it was rushed a bit towards the end of the project, and also that some of the ambitious concepts behind Brute Force were whittled down to make for a simpler, kind of more straightforward run-and-gun style of game. That's not to say it's bad. It's certainly not. Actually, a lot of the action in Brute Force is very well done. It's dynamic. The enemy AI is good. But this game isn't gonna knock your socks off. It's not gonna blow you away. It's probably not gonna do much that you haven't seen done before. So as long as you don't go into it expecting it to change your whole world or anything like that, Brute Force is going to offer you some good, fast action and some interesting weapons to choose from and some pretty cool characters to play as. The title Brute Force refers to the name of the squad that you'll control throughout the game. Its members include Tex, who's kind of your prototypical action hero. He can fight with 2 guns at once. He's kind of the big, burly, heavy weapons guy. There's Hawk, who's your stealth expert. She's got kind of a cloaking device that can make her invisible, and she could run up and cut foes down with an energy blade. There's Brutus, who's basically a big lizard man. He's kind of the most well-rounded character in the group, and he's got this vision mode where his enemies stand out from the environment, and he also regenerates his health. And then there's Flint, who's actually a cyborg, even though she doesn't look like it, and she's got a perfectly steady arm, making her perfectly suitable for sniping. You assemble this squad during the first few missions of the game, and then you'll control the entire team throughout. Whichever character you happen to be controlling will be the leader. You'll control that character directly, and the other 3 will follow in tow. You could issue some basic commands to these characters if you want, such as ordering them to cover you or to move to a particular place on the map, things like that. But you're never really encouraged to use these tactical features, nor do you ever have to actually use them at all. Your characters will do a perfectly good job of following behind you and supporting you in battle. You really don't need to worry about them at all. They won't get stuck on things. So there's some good squad AI here, but at the same time you don't really have any tactical considerations. So if you're expecting Brute Force to be this deep game about planning your missions out like Ghost Recon or something, that's not what you're going to get here. You're also not going to get much in the way of a story. It's kind of not a nice way to put it, but the best way to describe the whole sci-fi universe of Brute Force is to call it pretty generic, actually. The characters aren't particularly memorable. They're all kind of one-dimensional, even though they'll be through all these gun battles along with you during the course of this pretty lengthy 18-mission campaign. You never really get much of a feel for the characters. There's not much banter between them or anything like that. There's some nice pre-rendered cutscenes in between the missions, but again, these don't do much to expand the story. They just tell you, whatever it is you're supposed to be doing next. So, there's definitely a missed opportunity here to make this an engaging kind of sci-fi world. As it is, you'll just travel between the same 6 similar-looking environments that themselves are pretty generic. Just, you've got your desert, you've got your, fiery inferno planet, you've got your creepy alien planet, you've got your swamp, it's kind of all the usual suspects. So Brute Force, doesn't really distinguish itself when it comes to its characters and its plot and things like that. Fortunately, the action in the game is very good. It's what carries the entire game. Much like in Halo, characters in Brute Force can only carry 2 weapons at once, so there's kind of the tactical consideration of which weapon do you want to be carrying, and you have to salvage new weapons from the field, things like that. Though there aren't a ton of different types of enemies, those that there are quite smart. They'll use cover, they'll dive out of the way of grenades, they'll attack in groups, things like that. They make for a challenging opponent. They use different weapons, and there's a good balance of close quarters and long-range battles in the game, so there's always going to be something. The missions themselves aren't terribly interesting. There's a lot of them, but the objectives are all, basically just point A to point B types of things. You'll just run the gauntlet and pretty much kill everything that gets in your way. There's little in the way of surprise or suspense in brute force. They're just lots and lots of gun battles. That's what the game is all about. It's just a straight-up shooter, and again, it's fortunate that the shooting action is quite good. There are a couple of dozen different weapons in the game. Some of them feel a bit underpowered, but there's still a good variety. You've got everything from your Gatling guns to like your energy rifles and all kinds of variations in between. The game's got some really good grenades in it. Tossing a grenade into a group of enemies shows off one of the game's more impressive graphical features, which is, the ragdoll physics thing that's becoming the latest in game technology these days. You'll see your enemies all go flopping every which way, as though they were hit by a giant blast, and there's some really good particle effects on the explosions too. Other than that, brute force doesn't look particularly remarkable. The frame rate kind of bogs down. The characters look good, but their animation isn't always all that smooth. Brute force has been touted for a long time for its multiplayer features. Again, there's this cooperative play built into the game so that up to 4 players can be going through this campaign. Also, there's deathmatch and team deathmatch built in, but there's one glaring omission, and that's Xbox Live support. This is a single console game, or there's also a system link option if you want to get 8 TVs and 8 Xboxes together for a team deathmatch game. You can theoretically do that, but obviously that's not very practical. But given the split-screen multiplayer support that is here, it's hard to get totally excited about multiplayer brute force because the Xbox already has plenty of really great online shooters that are just preferable to play than this. The recent return to Castle Wolfenstein is a very good example. There's also Ghost Recon and Unreal Championship. These games have all done it already, so the fact that you have to split the screen into 4 little quadrants and play a third-person game in a split-screen view actually makes brute force's multiplayer not particularly that compelling, really, because it's hard to see, the frame rate bogs down, not that fun. Since this is a squad-based game, it actually makes some pretty good use of Dolby Digital 5.1 support. If you've got a sound system that can support that, you'll hear some of the enemy shots kind of whizzing by you and your enemy squad mates behind you, things like that. And generally, brute force sounds very good just as it looks very good. All in all, brute force has a lot of good qualities and even some great qualities. It's also got kind of a bit of a lack of polish. It's feels a bit rushed toward the end. It's not perfectly smooth, things like that. So as long as you go into it expecting just an action-packed, straight-up shooter, one that you can play, with up to 3 friends on a single system, that's exactly what you're going to get from brute force. It's not going to change the world. It's not going to change your life, but it's a good, fun action game for the Xbox, and if that's what you're looking for, then definitely check it out.